Hey friends, you're listening to This Quote Changed My Life, a podcast about inspired action. My name is Tracey and I'm the host of the show. Hello. This is episode 70 of my podcast and I'm astounded. I've been doing this for a few years now. I did take a break last year just because of lockdown, and I have 3 children that I was remote learning with. It was a little bit hectic, but now that I'm back into the swing of things and I can see that I've already done 70 episodes, I'm quite proud of myself. So I don't believe in waiting to celebrate. I decided that this week we're going to celebrate 70 episodes by looking back on the top 5 podcast episodes that you guys love, that you guys have been listening to the most, and what quotes they were. But before we get started with that, I want to thank you so much for joining me for 70 episodes. I am a solo podcaster. I am an almost 41-year-old lady who podcasts by herself from her home, from her living room, with a tiny camera and a cheap Amazon microphone. When I first started this podcast, I just was so excited to get started, and I think that was a good thing when you just so excited to do something and you just get it done. Of course I looked into getting more expensive equipment and doing it more fancy way, but the gist of it for me was just getting it out there and talking to you guys and connecting with you guys and hopefully helping you guys along the way and showing you things that that you think were impossible that are possible. And I know a lot of people podcast lately, which is fantastic because I love hearing people's different voices and discovering what they're passionate about. But for me, it's hard. It's hard to jump on a podcast and be, what's the word for it? See, I'm losing my words for it. But it's to be very clear and intentional with what I am saying on a podcast. And now that I'm starting YouTube and filming it, it's kind of really hard to do because I don't like my face out there, but that was my thing for this year, is to be more seen, show up on screen, show my face on Instagram and YouTube and not be afraid of it. So I wanted to say thank you for encouraging me along the way, even though you might not have said it directly to my face. The way that this podcast keeps growing gives me the confidence to keep going. So thank you so much for joining me for 70 episodes. Here's to another 70, which sounds crazy because how can any one person have 70 different quotes that inspired them? But I'm living proof that it actually happens. So if you haven't already, check back on the past 70 episodes for the podcast. There are not as many YouTube videos because I didn't start doing that until recently, but maybe there'll be 70 more in a couple of years' time. It's crazy. Thank you so much. Let's get on to your top 5 podcast episodes that you've loved for This Quote Changed My Life and the ones that you're listening to the most. And we'll start with number 5. The Obstacle is the Way, from February 2019. Oh, wow. That was 3 years ago now. That must have been one of the first episodes that I've done because I can't remember it. Definitely one of the first episodes I've done, 3 years. And maybe I've forgotten that specific quote along the way, but it's still such a good one to remember, right? And again, for me, I had a problem with showing up and being on camera and even being in a photo and taking a selfie. That's really hard for me. And in a way, that obstacle was the way, right? I am now a little bit more comfortable on camera and making these videos for you. It doesn't really bother me that much. The only thing that really bothers me is getting dressed and looking kind of presentable. I still don't take it to 100% because this is who I am any given day and this is who I want to represent. So really that obstacle of hiding myself was the way to grow myself and grow this podcast and try different things. So I hope that you can see any kind of obstacles that you might have and just rip it off like a band-aid, get started, like head in that direction. That might be the direction for you. Instead of avoiding it, why don't you peek over that fence and give things a little go? The next quote in our top 5 quotes is, if you change nothing, nothing will change. And again, that was from February 2019. Wow, my battery's going low. Such an important one. 100% yes. If you change nothing, nothing will change. I mean, that's the gist of it, right? If you don't get up and start making those moves, you will always stay in the same place, or you might take a backslide, right? I always say this, you're the one that's in charge of what direction you're going to go in and the steps that you take. So be the person, be the one that makes a change and be in charge of your success. If you change nothing, nothing will change. Excellent. All right, sorry guys. If you're watching on YouTube, you probably noticed that I stopped filming for a second because my battery in my camera needed to be changed. So anyway, I wanted to piggyback onto that quote, if you change nothing, nothing will change. There was a podcast episode that I did on a quote by a beautiful woman named Vanessa Jersey, who unfortunately did pass away from breast cancer. And the quote was so important to me that I emailed it to myself and I pinned it to the top of my email. So I see it every day and I still see it every day. It's been 4 years. The quote is from a letter that she wrote that was just so incredible to me, that it really inspired me to do things like set up this podcast and to move forward with the things that I really wanted to do. And I'm going to read it. It is, if you do not go after what you want, you will never have it. If you do not ask, the answer will always be no. If you do not step forward, you will remain in the same place. And I mean, 100%, 200%, 1000% true. If you don't step forward, you're going to remain in the same place. So that's the same as this number 4 quote, if you change nothing, nothing will change. If you don't make those moves, who is going to make those moves for you? You don't want someone else to make those moves for you. You want your success to be yours. You'll be much more proud of yourself. It'll be well earned. It will be scary. It can be really terrifying. If you've got IBS, it's going to be crazy, but will it be worth it? Yes. Go after the things that you want. Do not waste time. Let's get it going, right? So number 3, the podcast that you liked the third most, I'm sorry, I'm awkward, is The Only Way Is Through, and that's from June 2019. Now, you probably realize this, but avoidance is my middle name. I don't like to brag, but I think that we can all relate to this quote too, and it's very similar to the other quote, which was, the obstacle is the way.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Excuse me, my Apple Watch thought I was talking to her. Hold on a second. I think we can all relate to this quote because it feels like we avoid things or we delay things, and it's not about just going through the inevitable. It's about learning to deal with resilience and knowing that things have a flow and a cycle to it. And yeah, there's going to be things that you don't want to do. But once you get them done, they're done, and then you can move on with your life. I think that we tend to think more about what happens on the other side of things and how bad or good it's going to be. But you never know what can happen. So giving things a go and giving things a try is where you should focus your attention on. And then whatever happens after that will happen, and you can deal with it then. So the only way is through. So the second podcast episode that you guys most liked is from February 2020, and it is be loud about the things that are important to you. And I think I've had a lot of trouble with this one because I couldn't figure out exactly what it was that was important. I've had to figure it out along the way, and that's been great for me. I think that often we don't get started because we don't know what's important to us or what we want to do, but just like trying new things, you'll find out along the way. So also part of this particular quote about being loud is also being seen and being the one that is proud of the work that you do and putting your face to the work that you do. That can be very scary, and it was very scary to me, and it still is. But I think that once you know who you are and what you want to do, being loud and being visible becomes a little bit easier. It's a different skill to have. Not everybody wants to be on video or to have a podcast, but to be proud about the products and services that you create is what's important. Be loud about the things important to you, because there are people out there looking for you. And if you don't step up and say, hey, I can help you with this, they're never going to find you. So be loud and be proud about what you do and tell the world what you do. And finally, number one, the most loved episode of my podcast that you guys have listened to is from February 2021, so last year, and it is Repetition Rewires the Brain. And yeah, I mean, I love all my podcast episodes, but this one in particular, I think applies to everything and to everyone. Repetition rewires your brain. And I can go into the neuroscience of it, but it's definitely true when it comes to setting a new habit that takes you towards a goal. Repeating those steps is the quickest way to rewire your brain. And for me, personally, that comes with the territory of managing anxiety and OCD and things like that. I'm not going to get into it, but I think that people still feel like things should be quick or should be quicker, or you should be at a certain place by now, and why isn't it happening for me? But it really takes a long time for your brain to change the way it thinks and then change your habits. I had heard that it takes 21 days to change a habit, but I actually think it's longer than that. It's probably more like 60 to 90 days, probably beyond. So no wonder we get so disappointed when things just don't happen the way we think. And I really hope this particular quote, repetition rewires the brain, reminds you that it's a process. It's not a one-step thing, then you're done. It's repetition. It's rhythm. It's creating good habits. It's reminding yourself that things take time. I didn't mention at the top of this podcast episode that I'm going to take a 2-week break. Not because I don't love you guys, but because we have school holidays coming up here in Australia, and I am going to be with my kids, so I'm going to focus on that. But we're going to leave here for 2 weeks with some homework, and it's repetition rewires the brain homework. And I know I said it takes longer than 21 days to create a habit, but let's start with 2 weeks, right? Is there anything in your life that you wanted to get started on? Anything that you wanted to change or to try? Is there anything that you can create a habit out of, a daily habit out of, for the next 2 weeks or however long it is until you see me next, and really get things moving? How can you rewire your brain to do something that you've wanted to get started on, or something that have had trouble starting on? So it helps to create a schedule, a routine out of your things that you want to do. So it might be, getting more sleep at night. Can you head to bed earlier, an hour earlier, every single night for the next 2 weeks and beyond? Maybe you want to increase your hydration. Could you drink a glass of water as soon as you wake up in the morning, or keep your bottle handy and just keep filling that bottle up, getting more water into you? I know that's hard for a lot of people. It's a lot of toilet breaks, I understand. Is there anything else that you want to do? Is there an exercise goal that you have? I know that I've dropped that exercise ball. It's gone. The ball has left the field. But if I can do 5 minutes of something in the morning, somewhere between, getting the kids ready and getting myself ready, that could be a really good habit to get into, to rewire my brain to understand that I can fit in 5 minutes of exercise every day. For me, it doesn't have to be an hour of, running or jumping or doing crazy things. It's just 5 minutes every day. Keep going. So go away with this homework today. Repetition rewires the brain. Is there anything in your life that you feel you want to change? And can you create small, repetitive things that you can do that will change the way you think, change the way that you act? It doesn't have to be grand sweeping gestures. It can be as tiny as 5 minutes of exercise in the morning, or going to bed a little bit earlier every night, or even saying kind things to yourself in the morning. All these little things matter. And I hope that you spend this time doing something for yourself. Thank you again so much for joining me for this episode of the podcast episode 70, where we've broken down your top 5 episodes that you listen to. Thank you so much again for listening. It's been fun. It's been great. I'm not going anywhere. 2 weeks break and then hopefully back right on schedule once the kids go back to school. I really enjoy making these episodes for you, so I will be back. This is not goodbye, but Mama needs a break for just a couple of weeks and I'll be back with some more quotes for you. So I really hope that wherever you are in the world that you're happy, healthy and safe, and if you're not, I hope you get there soon. If you haven't already, you can find me on Instagram under @MakeSunshineCo. There is a website, that's quotepodcast.com, and you can find me on Etsy, where I have created some mindfulness and mindset worksheets for you guys to enjoy. Thank you again, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye bye.